Hi everyone. I just want to let you know that I did a major revision of this module, and the major revision that I made was that I added an instructional video because I realized that after years of deploying this module, I would have students for a grade apply all that they had learned, but I had not given them an opportunity to practice what they had learned, an opportunity to practice that was free of any stress or pressure of losing points, so for not a grade. But I also realized that the lessons give you the what, but they don't actually give you, as the module was created originally, it didn't give you the practice that needs to go with the theory, I guess you could say, of how we're thinking about argument in this module. So I wanted to let you know that. So it took me a little bit longer than I wanted, but I thought it was really important to get that done. And I was working up until the last minute to get that done. Now, something that I really want to stress that is super important is that we all have a working notion of argument, but we don't always use the word argument in the way that we will be using it in this class. So be very careful when I have you learn about argument during week 3, and be very careful whenever you see the word argument in the Learn Smart task, the Smart Book readings, whenever I tell you to do argument analysis, whenever I tell you to think about an argument, construct an argument. As you will learn and as we will see, the word argument can mean different things to different people and can be used in different ways. Your book, your smart book, does touch on argument, but I'm going to focus on a particular definition of argument, one that I want you to be able to refer to verbatim throughout the semester. You will need to pull from this lesson specific wording for future review, so that you can keep refreshing your mind on how we're using terms. So as you're working through the module, I want to warn you to not go with your own opinions. Do not go with your own experience of what it means for something to be an argument. Do not go with your own opinions of what it means to analyze an argument. You are going to learn something very specific about how we are using the term in this class. If you don't do that, you could constantly get things wrong in this class, and I don't want you to suffer that. So on that note, let's go ahead and proceed. You might want to review this stuff. This reminds you of some things. When it comes to when a quiz or activity presents a check answers button, again, I'm going to iterate as I did for the intellectual virtue soft talk modules. You click on the check answers button, or an icon, a button with an icon with a check mark in it, only when you're ready for your answers to be counted. A few people in an alignment activity during week 2 pressed the check icon or the check answers, and then they couldn't get their points back because they'd already seen the answer. So remember that you want to click on like check answers and finish buttons only when you're ready for your scores to be absolutely counted, depending on the kind of item it is. Okay, so I'm not going to read this verbatim, but make sure you do download this. You should know how to download lessons in virtue of completing the week 2 soft talk modules. Note that we are not going to go through this entire module together. We're just going to go through 2 or 3 pages at most, and then I'm going to go through each page and give you warnings, tips, and iterations with respect to mistakes that I see students making, things that I'm worried that you will miss, and whatnot. Of course, it is your responsibility to be in a distraction-free zone, to be using intellectual attentiveness and intellectual carefulness while you're doing so. The purpose and the learning outcomes, let's go ahead and read through those together. You have already been called upon to construct some arguments of your own related to reality, morality, and knowledge. As it turns out, argument is the method by which philosophers advance and defend their positions and about these very topics, and you will see this as you make your way through the curriculum of this course. And of course, that's something I emphasized in the introductory video to this week's learning and assignments. As such, it is worth your time and effort to learn about arguments from the standpoint of logic. So you read about that branch of philosophy when you were doing your Learn Smart task for the semester. The lessons, quizzes, activities, and there are no longer optional practice items. So after doing this video, I'm going to actually take this word out. You shouldn't see it in there. You'll just see the lessons, quizzes, and activities in this module focus on the logician's concept of an argument, argument identification, and basic argument analysis. So while this module lesson does focus on the logician's concept, you are going to focus specifically on Dr. Carrillo's concept from the standpoint of logic. So you can go and find on the internet, lessons and videos and whatnot when it has to do with the logician's concept of an argument, and you will find variation in how an argument is defined. Just slightly, they're all basically saying the same thing. But I want you to use my lessons and my way of defining it, which is perfectly consistent with logic, but I emphasize certain words in my definition in a certain sequence in a certain way for pedagogical reasons. So here are the learning outcomes for this module. You will define argument as the term is used in the philosophical branch of logic, and more specifically as it is defined in this module. You will review and or maintain your ability to distinguish between statements and non-statements. For a lot of you might be thinking, well, aren't we supposed to have college level reading and writing skills? How can you not know the difference between a statement and a non-statement? I do have students that will create sentence fragments out of statements when analyzing arguments. I have students in their writing that give me sentence fragments. And so some of us do need a review of statements and non-statements. If you clearly know for sure that you know the difference between those, then this will be a great review. That said, even for those of you who know the basic difference between a statement and a non-statement, there is also a variety of ways that people use a variety of ways in which people use statement. And it is so important to make sure you know how statement is being used in this class that I've dedicated an entire page in this module just to a statement. The reason being is that the word statement in the context of someone saying something in court or reporting something to a police officer, say when somebody's involved in an accident, the use of statement there is and can be very different how the term statement is used in the official definition for argument that you will see. So make sure that you understand exactly how we are using the word statement in the context of the definition for argument. If not, you're going to run into some issues, whether it's writing or analyzing. Okay, so you'll identify statements that function as a premise and those that function as conclusions. Visually, you'll also learn to visually present the thinking you do or did